staircase there. He walks along the back edge of the balcony, and he's seen by a lot of people. And those people think, here comes John Wilkes Booth. There's nothing strange about John Wilkes Booth being here. As I said, he's a famous actor. He's also considered attractive, well-groomed, and well-dressed. There's nothing in his character to produce suspicion in anyone. Unless you're one of John Wilkes Booth's personal friends or family members, you don't know his Southern sympathies. He moves to that door and he finds something which we will never see near the president. He sees an unguarded door. Now, it's not fair to compare contemporary security to security in 1865, but there was only one Metropolitan Police officer assigned to protect the president here at Ford's Theater, compared to a larger escort at the White House and en route. That is a very light escort for President Lincoln during the Civil War. I don't have a good explanation for this. It may simply be that with Richmond fallen and Lee surrendered, the mood was up, people thought the president was safer. Regardless, that guard was not on the door. He was elsewhere. We don't know where he was. We may never. He may have been drinking in the saloon. He may have been somewhere else in the theater trying to get a better view of the stage. That guard should have been on that door, but I would like to suggest that this is not one of those times when history could have gone one way and went another. I'd like to suggest that that guard would never have stopped John Wilkes Booth because John Wilkes Booth has the perfect pretext for getting into the box. As I've said, Lincoln's a fan of the theater. As I've said, Booth is a famous actor. He shows his calling card to the White House messenger he does find at the door, and the messenger, without raising any sort of alarm or without any sort of announcement, allows Booth into the box. Booth has the perfect pretext for visiting the president. Booth walks into that short hallway between the balcony and the box. He takes that piece of broken music stand I mentioned, and he braces it between the wall and the door, preventing any of you from in the balcony from pursuing him into the box. He waits for that line he found in rehearsal. There's a single actor on stage, Harry Hawk. He delivers one of the funniest lines of the show. It ends, "You sock-dologizing old man trap," which isn't funny now, but was then. And it got a big laugh, and in 1865, that's not a polite chuckle. That's clapping, stomping, hooting laughter. That's the distraction that he's waiting for. It's at that moment that John Wilkes Booth chooses to step into the box, fire a single shot from a .44 caliber Derringer pistol into the back of our 16th president's head. Lincoln slumps forward unconscious. He is not dead, but he will not regain consciousness. The first person to realize what has just happened is Major Rathbone, the theater guest I mentioned before. He jumps up. He tries to grapple with Booth, but Booth is prepared for this. He's carrying a knife. He stabs Rathbone. He moves to the edge of the box and he jumps to the stage. There's some debate as to whether or not he broke his leg. Regardless, he moves to the center of the stage and, according to about 10 eyewitnesses, holds the bloody knife above his head and says the words, "Sic semper tyrannis." This is a Latin phrase. As I've said, Booth is an actor. He's calculated this for drama. The line is reputedly what Brutus said when he assassinated Julius Caesar. It was then and it is now the state motto of Virginia. It means thus always to a tyrant. Booth is stating his own feelings about President Lincoln. After doing this, he moves backstage and goes out the same door he came in. His horse is being held by a stagehand who knows nothing about what has just happened. Booth strikes the man on the top of the head with the butt of his knife, mounts his horse, and rides off. By this time, laughter has only just started to die from the theater. People haven't figured out what's going on yet. They start to stop laughing. They start to hear Mary Todd's screams from the box. Major Rathbone shouts for someone to stop Booth. There's a courageous Army officer in the front rows here who tries to chase after Booth, crawling through the crowded audience, jumping over the orchestra pit and pursuing him out the back door. But by the time he gets out there, Booth has already ridden off. The first person to get in the box after this is a man named Charles Leal. He's a young Army doctor. He's only received his medical license a few weeks before, and he had arrived at the show that night not to see the show, but to see President Lincoln. Well, he's going to get that chance. He examines the president. He's looking for a knife wound. He saw the bloody knife. Finds no knife wound. What he does spot is some blood on the president's collar. And he begins feeling through the president's hair. Finds the bullet wound. And he makes the unfortunate but accurate prognosis that the president is not going to survive. If the president isn't going to live, and if he can't save him, what he can do is determine the manner of his death, where he's going to die. The theater's not an appropriate place. And he's concerned that a carriage ride back to the White House will be fatal. It will be too bouncy on the unpaved April roads. So he makes the decision that the president should be hand-carried very carefully across the street. He knows there's a line of boarding houses there. It just so happens a boarder at the boarding house owned by William Peterson hears a commotion as people pour in panic from the theater. He comes out, he spots the president's party carrying the president across the street, and he invites them to bring the president inside. The other two attempts are unsuccessful that evening. The man assigned to assassinate the vice president goes to the vice president's hotel. He gets drunk in the hotel bar and never makes an attempt on the vice president's life. The man assigned to assassinate Secretary of State Seward goes to the house, bungles sneaking in, and viciously attacks both the secretary and several members of his household, but is unsuccessful in killing anyone. 9 hours after being shot at the Peterson house, President Lincoln passes away, having never regained consciousness. According to several people there, after his time of death is determined, Secretary of War Edwin Stanton says, now he belongs to the ages, and thus passed our 16th president. John Wilkes Booth will be caught up with 12 days later. He will be shot in a tobacco barn through the neck by a soldier named Boston Corbett. He's not killed instantly. He's taken into custody and dies about 2 hours later. His last words are, "Tell my mother I died for my country." His guide, who's apprehended at the same time, is taken alive. He and several of the other conspirators are tried that summer. He and 3 of them, including the would-be assassin of the Secretary of State, the would-be assassin of the Vice President, and that boarding house owner who took Booth's message to her tavern in southern Maryland, are hung on July 7th.